I'm Christopher Anadale. I've tracked down some of my former students to ask, is there life after philosophy? Welcome to Life After Philosophy. My guest today is Harry Scherer, who hails from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He graduated from Mount St. Mary's University in 2022 with a triple major in philosophy, politics, and economics, that's one, history, and Latin. He later earned a Master of Arts in Human Rights at the Catholic University of America. Harry's writing has been featured in The American Conservative, The Washington Examiner, The Lamp, Newsweek, The Federalist, and other publications. He currently serves as a speechwriter in the Office of the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Anadale. It's a privilege.
Before we get into some more philosophical reflections, let me ask you, what's life like in Washington, D.C. in the summer of 2025?
It's been hot, but we have a good number of friends from the fellow Mount alum who live in the area, and a number of other friends. And so it's been a good time, and just trying to keep up with work. And yeah, it's been good. So
that's great. Okay. Well, you're a speechwriter for the Department of Agriculture, and I don't actually know what kind of creative freedom's involved in being a speechwriter, whether you're simply given notes and bullet points to type up, or whether you have a certain amount of research that you have to do. So let me begin with that then. What's the daily life of a speechwriter like? What kind of work do you do at the Department of Agriculture?
Yes, in terms of flexibility, it really depends a lot on the medium. So whereas with perhaps an op-ed, there may be some more room to, play with turns of phrase a little bit more liberally than, say, in a more formal speech. And then you compare that to just more casual talking points. It really just depends on the medium. And we have really great policy people who provide a lot of help, and a really great communications team in addition to that. So it's certainly a team effort.
Yeah, I was going to ask about what it's like as being part of a team, and I suppose since you're still relatively new, a junior member of a team for the communication staff. How does that fit into the work that you do, and how you think of yourself and your contributions?
Certainly. Well, I certainly recognize that the work that I do is dependent on my coworkers and colleagues showing up every day with energy and determination. So yeah, I'm try to remind myself of that as much as possible. And am grateful for them, for our director, and for everyone else in the policy team as well. So yeah, I mean, it would be impossible for me to show up and be able to do what I do, whatever contribution that is, without all of them. So.
Is there a certain kind of energy in DC that you found? If you've lived in the DC area for a couple of years, this is the first year of a new administration. Is there a kind of unique new energy you think in the DC policy shops, et cetera?
I would say so. Yeah. And I would think, yeah, I mean, especially in, the friends that I have, there's certainly definitely a new energy, and yeah, just an enthusiasm about the present and about the future. So that's been encouraging for me, having been on the other side of that for the past couple of years. So to just see it from the other side now for the first time living in the area has been definitely a treat. So yeah.
You've been able to keep up with a lot of your Mount friends down in the DC area. I know you're friends with Lexi, whom I interviewed before, and a couple of other folks. How's that going now, out 3-4 years out in the world?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah. See Lexi all the time, and her husband, Jacob, and their daughter. And I'll be seeing Brett Snow soon, who I know you interviewed. And I keep up with Emma Belsky, Nate Weinheimer, who I know you interviewed as well. So yeah, that's definitely one of the best parts about being a Mount alum is just, I mean, of course, I sort of had an awareness of that in college, but just the friends that I was able to make at the Mount definitely have been sustained over the years. So that's been a real treasure.
That's great. That's really great to hear. Especially, a couple years out, people can get isolated and lonely, but I'm glad that's not been the fate of you and your crew. Let me ask you a bit about philosophy and reflections on your philosophy education. You went through the PPE program, which is a sort of unique program with a philosophical flavor, but plenty of other things besides. How does that look back now, 3 years into your career? How do you think about your philosophy education and its contribution to what you're able to do now?
Oh, it's been very formative. So yes, I did the PPE program. I knew I was going to do that. I think before I knew that I was going to the Mount, actually. Um, so I don't know how I worked that out in my mind that I was going to be doing PPE, but not necessarily at the Mount. So, but yeah, I mean, other universities offer PPE programs, but uh, I would argue not with the same level of rigor or intellectual intensity, in large part because of the Mount's attachment to the Catholic intellectual tradition. And so I think that's what really makes the PPE program at the Mount stand out particularly. So I talked with Dr. Amanda Beal Krause in 2016, I think it was junior year of high school. And she was telling me about the PPE program at the Mount, which was very new at the time. I think they started it that year, maybe the year after. And so I did that with her until she was director in 2020. And then it switched over to my mentor and advisor, Josh Hochschild. And yeah, so that program was just, um, yeah, incredibly valuable for me, informative for me. And with regard to, I mean, in my experience, especially near the end of undergrad, I was able to pick which like philosophy, politics, or economics and focus in more on philosophy, which I think I had done perhaps more in politics earlier in undergrad. And so, yeah, I mean, I was able to take classes with, yeah, a great number of folks in the philosophy department, Dr. Buck, a number with him, Dr. Neighborhouse, et cetera, and Dr. Matchelet. And yeah, I mean, those courses were, I draw from them frequently, especially Dr. Matchelet's course on Aquinas, on Vice. I think the whole course was on Vice, if I recall correctly. And so yeah, just there was so much material that they covered that I learned so much from, and just the way that they engage with the material as well, I thought was really unique. So yeah, it was certainly valuable for me.
If you don't mind my asking, what is your intellectual life like now of a recent graduate? Because some people might think, well, once you're in the professional world, intellectual pursuits are a kind of hobby that you can do on the weekend, or if you enjoy listening to podcasts about that sort of thing, but it doesn't really affect your sort of day-to-day living. What's been your experience in that regard with regard to things in the life of the mind, philosophy and other subjects?
Right. Yes, I've been privileged in a way to be able to maintain that way of life, at least in part just because of the work that I do. It's just sort of necessary to engage because, like with writing and with policy, being able to communicate policy matters or even just political themes in writing requires, I think, a philosophical pretext. And yeah, so the philosophical training that I received at the Mount was certainly valuable for that. And yeah, I mean, I'm challenged every day to be able to, uh, integrate what is attempting to be communicated with what a given audience can hear and with the truth. And so just attempting to integrate all those things at the same time can be a challenge. But yeah, it's certainly a worthy cause. And then outside of that, I will say I think it does require outside of work. I think it does require certain dedication to want to be able to maintain a certain schedule or habit of reading and things of that nature. So,
Well, let me follow up on what you said about truth. I was thinking here, as an outsider to the DC establishment, I'm thinking in terms of a number of people's perceptions of both, DC politics, journalism, etc., that love of truth is not one of those sort of primary virtues or sentiments. And what's your experience like? Like that you're concerned for the truth, you want to tell the truth. What's that like as somebody who's sort of working in the belly of the beast, if you will?
definitely. I mean, I have a rule that, a colleague of mine said. I was very refreshed to hear from a colleague of mine, which is always tell the truth in communications. It's just easy. I mean, on a very practical level, it's just easier, because you're setting yourself up for failure in the long run, and just causing unnecessary longer hours, which I have not encountered, because I think we stick to that firmly.
Some of my former guests have referred to reading groups and other sort of elements of the sort of private, I don't want to say private, social pursuit of the intellectual life outside of a formal university scholarly setting. Has that been part of your life, or is that something that you're aware of and find any value in?
I have not kept up with any reading groups outside of work. No. Um, I'm sorry to say. Yeah, but yeah, I know, certainly know people who have done that and have, you know, gotten a lot from it. So,
Harry, one of the things I remember about you from your undergraduate days was that you were a guy who really made things happen. You weren't a student in any of my classes, I don't think, but I do remember seeing a lot of projects that had your signature, your participation, some of your leadership. What sorts of things are you making happen now?
that's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we had, um, I mean, that the work that we did at the Mount would have also, again, been impossible without our friends and, great mentors in the faculty. So, yeah, the Mount was formative for many reasons, but in large part because of all them. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying my best to keep up with the demands of the secretary's schedule, and just trying to, work as much as I can to fulfill those needs. And outside of work, I've been privileged to work on the pastoral council at a church down the street from me, St. Charles Catholic Church in Arlington, and I'm active also at St. Rita's in Alexandria. So yeah, just trying to keep up with all that and keep up with friends as well.
Fantastic. That's great. Are there any gaps in your formation you're aware of? Anything you sort of wish that you might have covered or spent more time on back in the past that would help you now, 3 years into the future?
Mm, yeah, that's a very good question.
I mean, maybe not.
Yeah, no, I think there definitely is. Yeah, I to what extent it's necessary, I don't know. I don't know how necessary it is, but some sort of, I mean, my understanding of um, like the fundamentals of sociology and psychology have largely been gathered like informally. And so if there would have been any benefit to sort of, formal training in those disciplines, I think that, might have been helpful, and there's certainly room for, further reading there. So, um, yeah, but otherwise the Mount was excellent. And with regard to philosophy and theology, I mean, and which are the most important. So,
Oh, that's great to hear. That's good to hear. What was your biggest surprise on moving into the kind of professional world that you move in right now? That's something that defied your expectations?
yes. Right. So after college, I was used to a very busy, like, professional, even though I wasn't getting paid, professional schedule and social schedule. And then you graduate from college, and there you are aware of this impending death that is about to happen as you go up to graduation, and you just try to think about it, uh, an appropriate amount, not too much, but just you want to be aware of it so that you're not shocked. And yeah, afterward, I think I was used to a certain level of intensity with work and friends, the time spent with friends, and then both of those diminished after graduation. So I don't know if this is the experience for everyone, but it was my experience, and so yeah, that was certainly unexpected. I thought that not necessarily the social life, because I realized I think even during college that was sort of unique. Um, but yeah, I think I expected after graduation that things would ratchet up, but then they didn't immediately after. So now it's a little bit different with the nature of, because before I never had a job where I was in an office 5 days a week, so that was just a little bit different, and whereas now I certainly am. Um, so yeah, those were expectations defied, I'd say.
Are there any ways in which you feel like you're using some of your philosophy education in the job that you do now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think just basic philosophical principles that I would have learned in classes, but also just in conversation with friends and philosophy professors. I think a lot of those conversations were able to really sink in deeply, and so yeah, I'm able to draw from them very frequently at work, and yeah, just in terms of, I think there's a and again, as I mentioned Josh Hochschild before, I think there's a overlooked aspect in which philosophy has tangible, practical um, effects. And it's not that it's to be sought for that reason, but um, yeah, I mean, Josh, he would talk about this all the time, and so just in terms of prioritization of what you're going to do on a given day, I think that's to some extent a philosophical question, and yeah, I mean that's one thing that comes to mind.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much. What kind of advice would you give to current students or people who are in the position that you were either 7 years ago or maybe as much as 10 years ago when you were visiting and talking with Dr. Beal about
Right.
the possibility of PPE? What do you know now that might have helped you to know in the past, that might help current students to know now about who are considering a philosophy education?
Yes. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I was telling my parents last night that we were going to talk this morning, and I said that Dr. Anadale has this podcast, and it seems like the basic point of it is that if you get a philosophy major, you're not up a crick, afterward, right? So yeah, that I would say certainly that's the case. Uh, that you develop, first of all, certain principles and relationships that are not necessarily, uh, essential to having studied philosophy. But you develop a certain foundation that is helpful for whether you want to go on to graduate work or into professional life afterward. But then, just in terms of general advice for a high school student or early college student, I would say for freshman year to just do as much as you possibly can and fill your time as much as you can, and try to meet as many people as often as you can on campus. So the Mount is a very special place for doing all of those things at the same time, because it's a small campus and it's a very tight community, and so yeah, you're able to do that pretty easily, sometimes without even trying. So first, yeah, I would certainly say that, because those relationships will um, pay dividends over the years afterward, and I have certainly found that to be the case, and am the beneficiary of it. So yeah, I would certainly say that, and yeah, try to take. And also in terms of economy of coursework, I would suggest front loading so that you have a lot of time senior year, because senior year is you develop sort of part-time jobs on the side, even if you're not getting paid, such as applying for jobs or applying for graduate work, which takes time, and you want to spend time with your friends. So yeah, those I would certainly suggest trying to get most of the bulk of your coursework done by the end of junior year. And to try to, I mean, you're in college, and so you're there to have great friends and enjoy those friends and have great relationships with your professors, and try to identify what the mission of the institution is. So identify that for yourself, and perhaps identify if there are any gaps in between your perception of that mission and the way the mission is played out in real life. I think that is a path in itself, trying to understand that dynamic. So take time to do all those things, and take time to read as well, because you won't have as much time to read after you graduate. So that's very important to develop the practice of reading. And especially, I mean, if we're talking just about advice to Mount students, the fact that you have chapels all around campus is a very unique reality. So, that's take advantage of that. So, and hopefully that's the case for a student attending any Catholic institution. But yeah, just being able to walk down your residence hall or across the street to a chapel, or in the case of the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception, which is just a beautiful chapel in the middle of campus, that will not happen very likely after you graduate. So yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for while you're there.
Yeah, that was certainly my experience as an undergrad many years ago. I find I graduate, I get out into the world, and I say, what did I do with all of my time when I was a student?
Right.
Why didn't I use these resources? The library, the chapels, the intellectual life, being able to go into professors' office hours and just talk to them about interesting things. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's good advice. My guest today on Life After Philosophy has been Harry Scherer, a 2022 graduate of Mount St. Mary's University and a speechwriter in the Office of the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anadale.
Thank you for listening to Life After Philosophy. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it 5 stars and share this episode with a friend. I appreciate your support.